I knew my grandparents had amazing stories of growing up in Vietnam during the first Indochina War, living through the Vietnam War, and immigrating to the United States. But I've learned so much by talking to them and now appreciate them more than ever. My middle name is Vu Duong, which is a meaningful homage from my mom to her parents. My grandfather's first name is Vu, and my grandmother's first name is Dawn. My grandfather says,
"We believe that if the names are similar in this life, there will be a high likelihood that we will be connected again in a future life. This is a concept of Buddhist karma. So, in the case of our family, your mom is connected to my father, and you, Julia, you're connected to me and to Meme."
Karma can seem as a mental seed that we plant in our mind, which can bear fruit as happiness or suffering. It was the hope that the seed of naming children after their grandparents would ripen into a familiar gratitude and respect of tradition. My grandfather starts out the interview by talking about his own father, Hoy.
"My whole life was molded by him.
He had a dream of becoming a doctor, but had to drop out of school to take jobs to support his family. At age 18, my great-grandfather joined the Hanoi Post Office, which was run by the French. This public employee job was one of the only ones that an uneducated man could get in the 1920s. My grandfather grew up in Hanoi during the Great Famine of 1945, just after World War II. Over 1 million people died of starvation. My grandfather remembers seeing dead bodies littering the streets every morning of people who had died overnight of hunger. His mother would make congee and feed the people in the streets several times a week. In 1946, the Communist Party of Vietnam revolted against the French colonial government, and all colonial employees were persecuted.
Our family was arrested and taken to a shooting range for execution.
But just before they were going to be killed, one of the militants remembered that my great-grandmother made him congee and fed him for almost a year. That militant ordered them to hold the execution. My grandfather said he would never forget this lesson and that no good deed is ever lost. It will come back to save you at some point. This is karma. Another one of the stories that I loved also made me believe karma is real, and every good deed is repaid. My grandfather was a surgeon for the South Vietnamese Army during the Vietnam War and stationed at the DMZ. He stated,
"When I treated my patients, I never asked them about their political affiliations. I only knew that they were sick and they needed my help."
He said he didn't know how many of his patients were communists at the time, but it didn't matter to him. As a doctor, he treated all the sick and injured who came to the hospital regardless of which side of the war they were on. And during that time, he made several house calls. One night,
When I was coming back from visiting a patient, my car was stopped by a group of communists with guns. They wanted to kidnap me, to use me as the hostage. But one of the partisans recognized me as a doctor who had treated his injury. He said, "Let him
there you
go."
go. This was amazing karma that made my grandfather always want to do the right thing. A small deed that my grandfather's job was the reason he didn't die. Being a surgeon, my grandfather was able to have the right actions of treating everyone equally, which saved his life. It's truly an amazing story that makes me so proud of my grandfather for always being a good man and helping people when possible.